Welcome to Feminine Roadmap Podcast. I'm your host, Gina-r-Farrar. Each week, I bring you an inspiring conversation to help you navigate the challenges and changes of midlife so that you can not only survive, but thrive in your second half. Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is Gina here, and today my expert is Rich-kohler. He is going to be talking about how we can create our kick-butt life in career and relationships, and that age doesn't matter and success doesn't discriminate. Rich's specialty is physical empowerment, and he believes when we empower ourselves through physical challenges, that's how we create the life we really want. Rich-kohler is a leading physical empowerment coach, a 6th degree karate black belt, the creator of Hands Off Lady Women's Empowerment Workshop, and he's the author of Got Physical Empowerment, The Ambitious Woman's Guide to Living a Kick-Ass Life. So without further ado, Rich, thank you so much for saying yes to me today.
Thank you for inviting me, Gina.
It is my pleasure. I'm really excited about this conversation. It's the first time we've had a physical empowerment conversation. I would love to know how it is that you came to doing this for women, this physical empowerment for women specifically. Tell me a little bit about your story.
So really, I think a lot of it started when I was a little kid. I was always into sports. I love sports, contact sports, and football and hockey especially. But I was a really shy kid. And it was quite an inner conflict inside me because here I was wanting to be the best I could at a physical team sport. But at the same time, I was a natural introvert. And I've learned not to put myself in that box, but I was a natural introvert and I was shy and did feel what it was like to want to expand and want to go out of my comfort zone. But that inner conflict kept pulling me back. No, don't do that. Don't speak up. Don't volunteer. So I was doing the team sport thing all the way up until about 15, 16 years old. And then in my family unit, I guess you would say, started becoming a little broken up. So my parents had split up. And at the time I was a 15-year-old kid, shy. And I didn't really feel, I guess I didn't have that support, that rock at home. And so I was kind of like stuck in the middle of the ocean, like, okay, what am I going to do? How do I develop more confidence in myself? And so I think I did what a lot of kids did, and I started leaning towards who's getting the attention, who's going to help me feel more secure with myself. And I started getting involved with a rough crowd. That was another inner conflict because the rough crowds do rough things. And it was a good thing I didn't get, too crazy, but there was a lot of fighting going on and a lot of, that's the attention. Those are the people that made me feel secure. But it really was another internal conflict because here I was, I knew I was a good person, a good kid, but just I needed confidence. I knew I needed it, and I thought that's how I was going to do it. So at about 16, 17 years old, I walked into a martial arts school on my own 2 feet. Honestly, I just wanted to learn how to fight better. I thought that was my answer. I thought that would give me more confidence. I had so much experience informally, I guess you would say, on the street. Thought I was all that. And then I learned a lot of humility right at the beginning. It gave me something to work towards for myself. It wasn't a team sport. It was an individual thing. What I put in was what I was going to get out of it. It was very physical. Quite honestly, the weirdest thing was I was going to have to spar people that I wasn't mad at, that I wasn't angry at. And that's what I was so used to. I used that as fuel when I was younger. Well, we're always going to try to look towards what's going to at least feel like it's going to give us power. I shouldn't say power, but more confidence in ourselves. I joined a martial arts school and I set high goals for myself because I'm an achiever. And I wanted to be the best kicker in the school. I wanted to be the best one at forms. I wanted to be the best one at sparring. And I set these goals for myself and I didn't have to deal with anyone else. I could go home and practice all by myself. So I was winning a lot of awards, but I was also training 6-7 hours a day. I was obsessed with it because it made me feel good. It made me feel confident in my success, my progress. And then I had a turning point. I was about 23 and I started teaching for the school. And at the time, that martial arts school had 400 students in it, a lot of people. And when I started teaching, something clicked, and I want to share with you a real quick short story about that. At the end of every class, when we were teaching the kids and the adults, we'd always line them up, and the instructors would get in a line, and we'd give them a high five and, bow, and that was the respect at the end. And I just got done teaching one of these kids' classes, bunch of kids, and this little boy, probably about 5 years old, I remember it to this day. This little boy comes up to me, and he looks up to me, and he says, "Thank you for teaching me, sir." And I was like, whoa, I was blown away because, number one, I never had someone call me sir. And number two, it wasn't all about me. It wasn't about my goals or me building myself up. It was the first time, I get shivers just thinking about it. It was the first time that I said, wow, I'm actually helping someone directly. And that little boy looked at, thank you for teaching me. I said, wow, I made a positive impact on that boy. And who knows where that could lead, right? And ever since that day, I switched my gears when it came to my martial arts. Even though I strive to be the best myself, one of the motivators was, well, to be my best now, I have to become a better instructor. And I want to share what this martial arts did for me to others. And that started my beginning of being an instructor, being a teacher, being a coach. And what keeps me building and striving to be myself, as I said, you know what? The best coaches, the best leaders lead by example. That aura that comes off that people get from me when I teach and coach them is very contagious. And I really use it. Look, I don't feel like training every day either. And I don't feel like going to work, even though I love what I do every day. But you know what? Doing it anyways and getting the job done to work towards your goals and what you want, whether it's a career, a relationship, or your dreams, it has to be done. And so what I did was I started creating programs to help people. And I guess I gravitated towards women and children. I think with my backstory, being a kid, getting in fights all the time, I wasn't starting fights, but I would be the one to stick up for you or someone else, even though I had a hard time sticking up for myself before that. But that was just something that was ingrained in me at a young age. I just wanted to help people. And so years later, when I became an instructor and started my own school even, that was a big thing. How can I help more and more people, not just the people in my community? And I actually started and created a child safety program. I wanted to keep kids safe from the predators out there. And I said, I can try to be better than all the other instructors, but you know what? There's always someone better. You need to be different. How can you add a little twist to what you do? So I created a child safety program, and I used a lot of human behavior and psychology. And I really wanted to scientifically and creatively get these kids to learn how to recognize danger, in particular predators. So I learned everything there was about child abduction and the lures and human behavior and the science behind the way we think, NLP and things like that. And I added it all into this program. And I started by sitting around in a circle with about 20 kids and saying, hey, this is the cool evil warrior. I created a wizard and his two apprentices, and they were going to teach these kids what to look out for. And if you can recognize all 10 evil warriors, you're going to become a steel-proof master. I added challenge, the apprentices. So there's a lot of psychology involved when I created that program. And I would do them in car dealerships at their special events and all over the place. And more people wanted their kids to learn, because you know what? It's not just what you're learning, when you're listening to something or you're reading a book or something. It's how you can take that, interpret it, and more importantly, retain it and then apply it. And I said, you know what? The way they're going to retain this life-saving information is if they're really into it. So I created the fantasy adventure. So one thing led to the next. It got more and more popular, and I actually said, I'm going to do this. And this was a scary thing. This was out of my comfort zone. I approached a producer, and I said, I want to make a movie. I want to make a Harry Potter movie. And we created this movie that actually won a Silver Telly Award in children's education. That was in 2013. And to this day, tens of thousands of kids all over the world are learning how to become steel-proof masters. And then I went on to, a couple years later, create a bully-proof program based on Mission Impossible. If you choose to accept this mission, and then I would teach them conflict resolution. I would teach them anger control. So I really was expanding on the children's programs. All along this time, I did have a lot of situations, people close to me that had been involved with domestic violence and domestic abuse, whether it was verbal, or it was physical or what have you. It's everywhere, and it is a form of bullying. The only difference is they're living with them. So imagine living with the bully. There's no getting away from it. And it became a passion of mine. And in my school here a couple of years ago, I was talking with one of the moms, and I found out that her son, she was divorced from his father, and his father was an abuser in many ways. This mom came from a corporate environment, marketing, high-level corporate marketing woman, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, she went through a lot with this guy. She started talking to me and she said, wow, I love the stuff that you do. You do some women's self-defense workshops and things like that. And she said, do you ever think of doing them for corporate? And I said, I've tried corporate, and yeah, we get corporate and it's not the holy grail. I said, well, you know what? I really want to get my message out there because really as an instructor, I know that the skills part, the self-defense skills part is actually the easiest part to learn because I teach simple stuff. Eye poke, palm heel, kick to the groin, kick to the shin, whatever it may be. It's very simple. It's not fancy. That's the easy part to teach. The hard part is teaching them to have enough confidence to actually use it. So keep in mind, it's one thing doing it on a pad or a vinyl bag. It's another thing when someone's in your face, screaming at you, psychologically breaking your will to capitulate and then just giving up. And so even the simplest things are hard to do. And I said, well, I'm going to teach something a little different than all these other martial arts schools. I need to be creative and I need it to work. I'm not going to teach a 3-hour self-defense workshop because whether it's 3 hours or 3 weeks or an hour, the skills part is the easy part. They need repetitions, but more importantly, they got to get the right mindset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 1-hour workshop that gives them the skills, but I'm going to do a really cool thing. I'm going to get a narrated music track. I've done several charity events where we taught 600 women at one time at women's self-defense workshops and donated. We would make $10,000, $11,000 in 2 hours and donate it to our local domestic violence support organization. So it's a really incredible thing. So more importantly than just the skills, I'm going to challenge them physically. Once you make it through that, whether you got to crawl over, under, or around, but you make it through and you don't give up, I've seen it every time at the end. But these women come up to me and say, wow, I never thought I could do that. So when I put it together, I made this 1-hour workshop and I called it the Hands-Off Women's Empowerment Workshop. Notice I didn't say self-defense workshop. This workshop is going to plant a seed of physical empowerment in you that says, look, through physical challenge that you overcome, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, a week, a month, a year, whatever it is, it's going to plant a seed. And if you continue to challenge yourself like that consistently, whether it's yoga or Pilates or fitness kickboxing, whatever you're doing, but you consistently, consciously make a decision to do it and not say, I don't feel like doing it. It's going to plant a seed of empowerment that says, look, I did this. I can do anything. I can start that side hustle business. I can ask for that raise. I can tell that jerk that's disrespecting me to take a hike because we're working with human behavior. And even though some things are very uncomfortable, like certain relationships or jobs or what have you, human behavior says, look, it's still more comfortable than going into no man's land, not knowing what to expect. So my workshops, if they could take you in that no man's land, so to speak, and have the support of me as an instructor and some of my team members push you and help you and support you, and you break through that, now you can do anything you want. You can accomplish it, anything you want. And I started doing these gigs everywhere. I was doing dozens of them and hundreds of women. They were free. What I did encourage is that they donate to our local domestic violence support. So am I working with just women that are abused? No. But I also think it's not domestic abuse, but I think society in general does some abuse. I mean, how you're able to deal with society, especially now with a lot of different challenges going on and different viewpoints, and there's a lot of craziness going on. Some people can deal with it. Other people just don't know how to deal with it. pressure is a part of life. We're always going to feel some kind of pressure. Every day we're getting a day older. So we're either getting higher or we're getting lower, but we never stay the same. When I started doing all these workshops, I said, wow, I'm getting a lot of really cool insight on these women. And like we talked about earlier, I wrote a book called Got Physical Empowerment based on my workshops and some of the systems and some of the strategies and things that I share in my workshops. Well, I wrote the book because of what I've learned through doing all these workshops with hundreds of women. And already I have some women come up to me and they say, I told them about the book and my friend was like, well, how come a guy wrote it? And so, yes, it's true. I'm not a woman and I can't profess to know what a woman thinks or how a woman thinks. One of the strategies that I teach for women is my alter ego is the Punisher, like the character, the Punisher, because that's the way I've been since a child. I always want to stick up for people that tend to be the underdog in a situation. And I don't use the word victim. Okay. You may be targeted. A victim is really the result of what happens after something happens to you. You can choose to be a victim or not. You could choose, no matter how traumatic it could be. And sometimes it's very traumatic. And I've dealt with people like that have gone through a lot of that stuff, especially doing these workshops. And I said, look, I don't have to be a woman to know how women are thinking just through the insight I've gotten from working with so many women and them sharing their stories with me. I might not be the Punisher to you, punishing the bad guys that are disrespecting women, but I can be that big brother that you might not have. So if I can create a platform, and I have created the Rebels, the hands-off lady Rebels, if I can create a platform where you have a place to go and say, look, I want a man's perspective on this. How is a man thing? I'm kind of like your spy on the man's level. Why do men act like this? Why do men treat people like this? And I'm not talking about abuse, but even disrespect. I wanted to offer women a way and strategies through my physical empowerment training where they could, what I say, expect respect. They should expect respect, not feel that they have to jump through hoops for respect, but expect it. And you're only going to expect it if you respect yourself first. And how do you respect yourself? You respect yourself by taking care of yourself physically and mentally. If you're laying on the couch every day, I'm too tired, I don't feel like working, or this person said this, or the kids are out of control, or we all have that happening to us. Like they say on the airplane, if you want to help your child next to you, you got to put the mask on you first. Then you can help others. And that's one of my messages that I'm teaching a lot of my clients and my students. Look, we got to put the mask on you. We got to build you up. And when you have that self-respect, you're going to eat better because no matter how much that gratification is of eating that whatever, Danish or whatever it is, yeah, it tastes great, but it's 3 minutes of pleasure to get ready. We all know it's not good for you. And if you eat properly, honestly, you can have a cheat day and you can eat, you can eat a lot of junk 4 times a month and your body doesn't even notice. But you got to respect yourself. And I wanted to offer a way of doing that. So backtracking a little bit to the hands-off. Why hands-off? Well, using psychology. When I created this, it was a couple years ago. And if you remember a couple years ago, it was really when the whole Me Too movement got a lot of attention because of the Harvey Weinstein and all of that stuff going on. And we all know when anything bad hits the celebrity world, it gets a lot more attention in the media. But I was listening to all this Me Too stuff, and it was horrifying, all the stories that come out. And yes, it's a great platform for women, and they don't call them victims. They're called survivors that have survived these terrible situations where, they're in this group now. And this is a group that no one wants to be in because they are a survivor or / still a victim of a horrible thing. And me, self-defense, I don't even like the word self-defense. Why? Because self-defense automatically gives you a reactive mindset. Self-defense. Mm-hmm. Defense is naturally, people think of it as a reactive mindset. If someone throws a punch at my face, I'm going to block it. If somebody goes to grab me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The reality, though, is when you're dealing with people, whether it's physical or verbal, and they are an aggressor, they're already a step ahead of you. they're already in that attacker mode. So the average normal person has to try to shift gears. They go through, just like if you're in an accident, a car accident, the first thing that happens is there's that moment of denial when it's happening. It's like surreal. It's like, this isn't really happening. It can be an instant, but you go through denial. Then once you go, whoa, this is happening. Then you go through fear of what's happening, denial, fear of what's happening. And then you're assessing what's going on. And then once you assess the situation, you're trying to figure out real quick through your brain, you're trying to figure out how to deal with it. And then once you figure out how to deal with it, then you have to figure out what actions to take. All this happens that fast. So whether it's a car accident where you really don't have, I guess you could say if you were losing control of a car, now you're like, oh my, denial, I'm losing control. Okay, let me focus on the road, not on the guardrail, and I can pull myself out. Yeah, if you can do that, that's great. But if you have an aggressor, somebody that's getting in your face, maybe it's road rage, you took someone's parking spot, they're an aggressor. They're already on the attack. You need to shift gears instantly. And that's very difficult to do. And someone that is very aggressive in life in general, they bully people physically, verbally, what have you, emotionally. They know that. They know there's a shift there. So they will try to basically shock and awe you through verbal, through screaming, through yelling, or whatever, to put you in a state of hypervigilance where you just freeze up and capitulate. One of my things that brings me back is when I talk about freezing up, and I talk about what happens when someone capitulates and just gives in. First of all, if you give in to somebody, and I'm not saying compromise, I'm not, you can give into your demands, but compromise, that's healthy, right? You're compromising. You're still sticking up for yourself. It's compromise. But I was teaching a sorority at UConn here in Connecticut. So I was teaching 125 girls in a sorority on an outdoor lawn in front of UConn. And it was a really, really incredible experience for me because I had my sound system, my mic, but it was 125 girls ranging in age from 18 to 22, let's say, right? And my youngest daughter is right in the middle of that. So what I saw was 125 of my daughters. And I was teaching these girls. And as I'm setting up my stage, I don't have roadies. And I talk a little bit about that in my book because I'm like, I should get a roadie or something because setting all this stuff up all the time. But then I said, when I'm setting up is where I'm getting some intel, like a fly on the wall. I'm listening to the women talking. I'm listening and going, oh, I hope this isn't like that. Oh, I hope I can do it. And I'm listening to a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of stuff like that, a lot of nervous giggling and things like that. Anyways, so sometimes it's a good thing to have that time to listen. But anyways, I was teaching them some of the physical movements and they were all loving it and everything was good. And then I said something and I said, listen, you don't have to break their body to be safe. You don't have to break someone's body. You just have to break their will to want to attack you, their will to hurt you. And when I said you don't have to break their body, you just have to break their will, I just got shivers right now to telling you this, Gina, because these girls all started cheering and screaming when I said that. I'm like, wow, what an impact that had on them. You don't have to break someone's body to defend yourself or stick up for yourself. You got to break their will to want to harm you or bully you or whatever it is. And you can do that in many ways. If it was a physical attack, well, then, yeah, you may have to do, some sort of physical movements to escape. But self-defense can also be proactive. So why do we want to be me too? It happened to me too. It happened to me too. When you could have an attitude of hands off. No, I'm not going to let you disrespect me. No, I'm not going to settle for that. No, and you can do it. And I'm not saying be rude or anything. I'm saying be confident in yourself. Don't be afraid. There's a famous advertising guy, Donnie Deutsch, and I read his book years ago. And I just remember, he shared a story about how, he was with someone and they were at a hotel and she was much younger and, and he was very successful. And the person he was with, this girl, she ran into a couple of college guys that she knew from college that were also much younger than him. And they whispered to her like, hey, why are you with the old dude? And that really got to him. So it kind of triggered something in him, and he started working out. And if you saw Donnie Deutsch, he was jacked. I mean, he started working out hardcore, and he got in great shape. And he wrote a chapter in his book, and he said, I don't remember the exact name of it, but I'll never forget the concept, the principle behind it. He said, look, if you're the strongest in the boardroom, when you walk in there, you're going to have the confidence to own that boardroom. So it wasn't, and I use that for self-defense. When I walk into a room, and this is just primal, when I walk into a room, especially with colleagues, martial artists, what have you, school owners, what have you, you want to be good. You want to be awesome at what you do, but these are your colleagues. Oh, they must be judging me. They're going to judge this. Or maybe you're pitching a multi-million-dollar deal. There's a lot on this. You're nervous. You're scared. But if you walk into a room and you say to yourself, I can kick anyone's butt in this room. Not that you ever would, but if you think you can, something triggers inside you. Go, you know what? What do I have to be scared of? I'm prepared. I make sure I'm prepared. I'm going to go in there. What does it matter what they may say or whatever? As long as I'm prepared and I got my things all lined up. Look at Steve Jobs. How many, over 100 hours of preparing for every presentation. It wasn't natural, but when you walk into a room and you feel, whether it's through self-defense, I have peace of mind. I can defend myself. Or you walk in because you feel like you're in great shape because you've been working out. That's physical empowerment. Tell me that can't change your life. It can.
How do women get to that place? Because I think as women, we are inclined, I think, to be nurturers, to be passive, to do that yielding that you were talking about. How do we shift our mindset as women? I understand how men work and why men are typically aggressors. I mean, it makes sense the way that men are wired. There's a more tendency toward dominance. Now, to be fair, my personality is quite strong, and I find that people instinctively feel intimidated by me, and I don't exactly know why that is because I'm not thinking intimidating thoughts, but people are like, you're really intimidating. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Is it because I'm 5'11"? Is it because I just walk into a room and who knows? So for women, I have a natural shield that I don't even know how it got there, but most women are passive or more afraid to look, I don't know if they're afraid to look masculine. Like, what is that thing that you come up against with women that my listeners might be feeling in the idea of having the right to say hands off? It sounds silly to say that, but I think as women, it may feel uncomfortable.
That's a great question. And that's really what we're addressing here. And that I would categorize under limited beliefs. I think part of it could be the way a lot of women, a lot of girls are raised. They're raised to be polite. When I talk about safety, like happy hour, some guy comes up to a woman at happy hour, she's by herself waiting for a friend or what have you, and he starts hitting on her. A lot of women naturally are going to go into a very I'm just waiting for someone, thanks anyway. And they're going to they don't want to be rude. They don't want to be aggressive, but that's the way they're taught to be. So some of that could be the way they were raised as a little girl. The father, did the father, I raised my youngest daughter, I raised her to, she's quiet normally, a lot like me, but I wasn't going to let what happened to me happen to her. And so what I did was, as a young girl, I got her involved, of course, in martial arts. She went through 2 black belt tests, but I got her involved where I said to my wife, who is also naturally on the shy side and introverted. And I said to my wife, look, we're not going to let this happen to her. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to keep her on the edge of her comfort zone as we raise her. And we do that through competition. So martial arts, you got to show your stuff every class, every month. And then she went through horseback riding. It wasn't long where she's jumping over a 2,000-pound animal. I'm like holding my breath, and she's doing it in front of 100 people. Guitars, piano recitals. And then when she didn't want to do something, I would say, okay, you don't have to do that. What are you going to do now? Well, I don't know. You're going to do something. And it wasn't about keeping her busy. It was about keeping her on the edge of that comfort zone where it kept her safe. I was always pushing her to be as they say, comfortable at being a little uncomfortable. So to answer your question, a lot of that I think is a learned behavior. That's the way you're supposed to act. That's the way you should speak. And now when you said about yourself, why do people think that you might be over assertive? No, it's not that, because I think when you explained it just now, and you like to a man, for a woman to be outspoken to a man, and here, see, this is your intel coming from a man, right? Women don't get this. But if there's a woman who's really, outspoken and extroverted, that's almost calling me out. That puts me on my defensive. Oh my goodness, this woman's more confident than me. So I either A, going to walk away from the situation as a man, or B, I'm going to try to intimidate through whatever means I can to knock her down where she should be in my mind. And that's just ridiculous. So once again, going back to a vehicle such as personal safety on a physical level, look at, you don't see too many women that know how to defend themselves putting up with that stuff. Now, is it magic? No, because you could have women, I know women that are very well versed in martial arts or what have you, self-defense. But remember, most women that are attacked physically by men are attacked by men they know. And that's because the man knows them. They know your personality. They know they can get away with it. See, when an aggressor chooses a victim, we call it an interview. It could be 2 seconds. It could be 2 years. They're interviewing. Now, yes, there's opportunists, but for the most part, if a guy is going to do something to a woman, whether it's physical or what have you, verbal or whatever, it's because they think they can. People do what they think they can get away with. So let me give you an example. I was driving on the highway one year. It was around Christmas time. And I'm driving down the highway, and I see a car pull over in the breakdown lane, and everyone looks, right? We're all looking at that car in the breakdown lane. And then another car pulls over right behind it. So everyone's slowing down. What's going on here? And it was a road rage incident. And it was funny because the first car, the guy gets out, and he's this average looking dude. You could see the look on his face, and he's gonna whatever. And then the guy in the car behind him gets out, and it's a massive dude. That first guy turned around, got back in his car, and boom. And it was hilarious because that was an interview. What was, I'm going to teach this guy to cut me off. All of a sudden it was like, oh, nope, wrong person. So let's look at that in terms of women. Build themselves when they feel that, look, I deserve to be respected. I shouldn't have to earn it from you. Now, of course, you can't be rude and be a kind of person that doesn't deserve respect per se. But women shouldn't have to feel that they don't deserve it or they have to earn it from someone, especially from someone in an authority figure to them. And so how does it work like that? Well, when you build yourself up, when you make consistent actions every day and you get out of your comfort zone every day and you force yourself consciously to do that, no matter what you're doing, it builds confidence. Okay, it builds confidence and little notches. The more uncomfortable it is, look at, and you may realize this too. When I get on stage and I'm talking in front of 1,000 people, especially my peers, I've learned how to deal with that because I focus more on my purpose as I do on my own personal performance per se. But the reality is, you can just focus on your purpose, and then when it's done, there's no greater feeling that rushes over you like, whoa, that was awesome. So an hour before that, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. That's how people feel every day. They're too afraid to take a chance. They're too afraid to take a risk because they're scared of failure, which is just an illusion anyways. Failure, it's not, like a lot of successful people say, it's not what happens to you, it happens for you. And when you reframe what's happening to you and say, look, this happened to me because it actually happened for me to learn from it. So it can take me one step closer to where I want to go, whatever my desired life. Gina, everybody deserves to live the life of their dreams. I mean, we are in a country that you have the opportunity more than any country. So when I have clients from other countries where that opportunity really isn't in their country, they come to America and they say, oh, wow, it's whatever I want to make it. And that's why statistically more immigrants become successful than, American-born people, because they know what it looks like not to have the actual opportunity at all. So it's a learned behavior that can be unlearned. Whatever is learned can be unlearned. And it just is about pushing, and whatever vehicle you do to consciously eliminate. Yesterday is not today, and today is not tomorrow. And that's the hardest thing to get through. And you need to build yourself up through setting and achieving goals. Little ones add up to big ones. And the more you do, the more confidence. When you get good at something, and this is what I tell people, just get good at anything. If it's on a physical level, there's so many more fringe benefits that you get chemically and so forth. But on a physical level, get good at something, get competent, even in the smallest way. I can't do a pull-up. I can't do a push-up. Do it on one knee. Do it on two knees. Look, you were better than last class. That was a smidge of competence. Competence creates confidence. Mm-hmm. And when you feel that you're competent, what's that create? Motivation. Yes. To go back and get more, bigger goals. And so how does a woman reach out and achieve great things that they want, the desired life they want, that they deserve? Everyone deserves it unless you're an evil person. You deserve to have a life. But how many people are held back by people or situations or whatever? They're held back. Your relationships. How many people are staying in a relationship that is toxic because they're more afraid of the unknown, or they just don't have the confidence? And abusers, they strip everything: confidence, esteem, finances. They strip everything. They take you away from your friends and your family. They don't want anything supporting you. So yeah, it's a much more difficult at that point. But we all have the opportunity to say, look, this is what I want, and I have strategies, and these are strategies that I share. And I did this all through this workshop, very broadly in an hour, doing moves. But the reality is it allowed me to really start breaking it apart and put it in a book. And even the book, how many people finish the first chapter of a book? I made a short book. I said, look, you can read this in 2 hours. What's your excuse? It's going to give you a roadmap, and that's why I created a community where people can share and support, to reinforce that and give you that little push. We have what we call a 28-day challenge, where you just consciously decide to do something physical for 28 days in a row. I'm on almost 80 days where I do 50 to 75 burpees every morning as soon as I get out of bed. And let me just tell you, Gina, some mornings it sucks. I don't want to do it, but I will not break the chain. It almost scares me. Like, I can't break the chain, because that builds my confidence. If I can do that, and anyone knows burpees, it's like, oh, I don't want burpees. I'm doing 50 to 75 with one eye open and a headache or something. I'm still pushing my way. If I can do that, I can make that phone call I didn't want to do. I can deal with that person that was complaining that I didn't want to do. I can deal with that bill that I didn't want to do. I can face that stuff. And all of it adds a little more notches of confidence in myself. So I think that answers your question on how we can unlearn certain limited beliefs, get rid of them. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. That was then. This is now. Let's just figure out ways to create new beliefs. We're going to knock down the table, knock down the legs that hold that belief up that you were told. Look, we were all born naked, and we all ran around naked, no problem when we were a baby, until one day someone said, "What are you doing? Put some clothes on." Bam, you put clothes on. That was your first sign of conformity. You used to scribble all over your paper, and everyone said, "Wow, that's so pretty," until the kindergarten teacher said, "Stay in the lines." Now all of a sudden, conformity. Now I look at self-defense training. When we do something called combination striking, I teach them the tools, and I say, make your own combinations up. They look at me like, what, you're not going to do it? No, this is about you. This is the ultimate form of physical expression. So it's making choices under pressure. Is there any more pressure than someone in your face? Now, obviously, you never want to have to use these skills. But when you know you can, and that, Gina, that's not including women that are traveling. How scary is that? You create awareness. You create an aura of, look at, I'm nice, but I'm assertive. I don't want to fight you, but I'm not an easy target. And that all comes through on a vibe. And it's through body language. It's through a vibe people get. When you walk into a room, Gina, you probably have that sensation on people. They go, whoa. And that's because you talk with so many people, and you say what you mean, and you call people out. And people are like, whoa, she's a hard target. I'm not going to mess with her. And for women, that's kind of a cool thing to have. Not mess with you physically. A man will know who he can mess with and who he can't. And they throw out little feelers, so to speak. And so women, we can break through that. And I'm on the women's side, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of great men out there that support the same thing that I do.
I have to say that my mom was in an abusive marriage when I was younger. And so my formative years were in an abusive home. I get it. I'm an only child. So I took a lot of stuff in, but I wasn't given the permission to express myself. So when I hit about 18, all of that anger came out. And that's an interesting dilemma for women too, is a woman who is assertive or who has a chip on their shoulder or who's angry is a negative thing. And I know that because I've been that person, right? In that abuse background, having an uncle who is abusive to us, as well as that stepfather, it created a massive chip on my shoulder that took me years really to overcome. And I think for some women, they don't need to go as far to that side as I did, but I didn't have help to understand my emotions. And so as women are dealing with these emotions, maybe they're like me and they're like, oh no, you won't. I've taught my girls, you need to let everyone know without being, like you said, a jerk or whatever. You need to put off in your body language that you're going to be a hassle. If somebody's looking for a target, you look like the hassle, the one that's not. Yes, be the hard target. But I have to tell you one little story. I know we're rounding up our hour here. We were at Disneyland, and I think like you help people with their physical bodies. So you probably pick up on things, right? Well, having been in an abusive environment and having really learned a lot about the dynamics of abuse, we were at Disneyland and there was a young couple. I mean, they couldn't have been 16, 17 years old. It was a guy and a girl. And the boy started doing this thing where he was like tapping her face. Mm-hmm. And then he started tapping it harder. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, stop. And he did it harder. And I was like, I want to say something. I wanted to grab the girl and go, this guy is testing to see how much abuse you'll take. Mm-hmm. He kept it up for quite a while. And at one point he got really rough with her face and she let him. And then he love bombed her.
Of course.
Oh my gosh. I'm
sorry.
He didn't really apologize. He wasn't
right.
He was, oh, let me kiss you. Let me hug you. But after I've literally almost smacked you across the face, like it was getting super aggressive. And I could see that he was breaking her down and she was feeling like he was trying to convince her he was just playing.
You see the loop he created?
Yes, I did.
So he was testing the boundaries, like you said, and then he finishes it off with the, I love you, can I kiss you? And then when she allowed him, that's just setting the foundation for the relationship. And it probably will escalate. And you take this 18-year-old boy like you were just talking about, and it kind of reminds you of the little 5-year-old boy that just wants to antagonize someone over and over. It's because people do what they do because they think they can. And so you got to let them know that they can.
I want to say, as women, this is what you're basically saying. It's okay to say, get your hands off of me.
Absolutely. And you can say, you don't even have to be it. Say, look, I don't appreciate that behavior. Don't let it happen again. Thank you. Always respect. When I teach like bully proofing, and remember, a lot of people automatically think bullying is for kids. Little bullies grow up to be big bullies. It's a learned behavior. So I always explain to them, look, if a bully you can't disrespect the bully because you're fighting disrespect with disrespect. So in other words, a bully does what they do because they want they want to feel more power, right? Knock down the buildings around me and I don't have to build mine as high, right? So, but if you disrespect or humiliate or embarrass a bully, you risk them escalating, especially nowadays in schools. In the old days, someone's disrespecting you, like the fathers, if he hits you, hit him back. Well, the concept behind that was that they won't hit you again because you stuck up for yourself and you became a hard target. Nowadays, it's different. You hit him back, you embarrass him in front of his cronies. Remember, you already have an insecure person, that bully. What they're going to do is there's a good chance they're going to escalate it. Now, when you show up at the bus stop, he's got 3 of his buddies. Now he's going to prove a point. And if he doesn't have his buddy, he's going to bring a weapon. So you really can't disrespect a bully. So there's 3 kinds of personalities that I talk about. There's passive, there's aggressive, and there's assertive. So you don't want to be passive and let people stomp all over you, because they will. And you don't want to be aggressive, because that makes you a jerk and no one wants to deal with you. You might get your way, but you're kind of being a bully when you're aggressive. You want to be assertive. That's the attitude where you're like, hey, look, I don't want any troubles here, but this is what is required. This is what I need to happen. And I'd really appreciate if it happened. What's it going to be? That's the attitude. And so assertive behavior is the best way to go, but you have to have the confidence to do that. So don't disrespect someone that's disrespecting you. Hey, I told you to get that done. You don't say, oh, yes, go stick it. That's not sticking up for yourself in a healthy way, because that creates more conflict and it can escalate. When you say, look, I'm not going to do what you say because I don't appreciate you talking to me that way. I will take care of what I need to do. I'll get it done. And you know what I mean? So you're sticking up for yourself. Sticking up for yourself doesn't mean punching someone. It means, because really, Gina, it's really important when a bully bullies someone, it's not the physical that hurts them enough. It's not the name calling that's going to hurt them. It's when they walk away and they start, number one, they feel shame. They feel shame, and then they say to themselves, well, maybe the bully's right. That's when it gets really, really bad, because they start believing what the bully says. Stick up for yourself. And obviously you want it to be verbal as opposed to physical. But when you walk away and just take it on the chin. So you say, oh, well, just turn the other cheek. You can ignore people, absolutely. But keep in mind, if they think you're being passive, if they don't sense that somehow you could say something like this: look, I'm not gonna deal with you right now until you show me more respect, and walk away. You're walking away, you're disconnecting, but at the same time, you're sticking up for yourself, even though you walked away.
Right.
There's an old saying, a real man walks away from a fight. Well, a coward walks away from a fight wishing he didn't. See the difference? Because, hey, if you're going to walk away saying, I should have hit him, well, you're just as bad as someone that hits the guy. You were just a coward to do it. But when someone walks away and says, look, I don't need to put up with that. I deserve better than that. As my mother she always would say to me, consider the source. Consider the source. So assertive behavior. And when you know you got the chops to back up your words, even on a primal level, and for women, I call it the mother bear. Think about it. What is more ferocious than a mother bear in the woods? If you see a cub, you're in trouble, because wherever that cub is, mothers. Since when are they supposed to be, less than a man, or like you said, inferior on certain levels than a man? In the wild, the females are the ones to watch out for, and that's what I explain in my book. I go, be a mother bear, be that alter ego. Whatever it takes. It might not be the real you. They say Robert De Niro is very introverted. One of the best actors of all time, very introverted. But he's an alter ego when he gets in front of the camera. So I'll teach a woman. I said, become an alter ego, or just think of your kids. Because when that bad guy's done with you, he's going to go rape your 10-year-old daughter. You want to watch a woman that 1 minute saying, oh, I could never do that to a guy. And the next minute, I'll rip his head off. Because she just needed that different mindset. It's all the mindset. And you can work on that. You can develop that. And honestly, I've met Chuck Norris, and I talk child safety with Chuck Norris. He does a lot of stuff with kids. And because of my fantasy adventure child safety program I created, I was able to sit down and talk with him. And it was a really awesome experience. But I would tell you, one of the nicest guys I've ever met, and such an iconic martial arts figure, right? Chuck Norris, all the jokes about how he is like the toughest. But, there's a lot of guys out there that are real tough, but they're very insecure and they're jerks. That's what I'm talking about. You can be one of the toughest men in history, so to speak, and be the nicest. That's the balance we're talking about. Yeah. So you can develop a toughness inside you, whether it's physical or mental, and be the nicest person in the world. But people will feel that vibe. When you walk into a room, they already feel it. They know body language, the vibe, the vibrations. And when you're someone that walks in knowing that, I make conscious decisions every day to step out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna get rid of my limited beliefs. I'm not going to listen to anyone, including myself, that whispers in my ear, I can't do it. I'm too scared. I'm not strong enough. I can't. You just got to learn how to overcome those beliefs, and everything changes. It's phenomenal.
So I would love to have you land the plane with 3 things that women could use that are actionable. If they can't access you at the moment, Rich, and they need something to anchor these ideas to get them started. Maybe they are passive. Maybe they were raised to be like a Southern woman who's always sweet, sweet as sweet tea, always just kind and, doesn't ever put up a fight. What 3 things could you give to them to help them really begin this journey of empowering themselves and really recognizing that you can?
Well, I think I use a lot of metaphors, and one of them is the first thing you need to do is actually create your desired life. What is your kick-ass life? What does it look like? What would it feel like? What would it smell like? How would you feel? You write that down. Journal it. Take some time by yourself and write, what would your relationships be like? What would your career be like? What would everything about your life? You need to know, where do you want to go? Don't just jump in the river of life and let the current take. Where does the current always end up? Over the waterfalls, right? So you need to swim against that. You need to start by creating your desired life. Write it on paper. They talk about vision boards. Get pictures. I do this. Get pictures to remind you of your kick butt life. What does it look like? You need to be reminded. It creates a self-awareness every day. And once you get that desired life, what kind of person would you have to be in order to live that life? In other words, create that new you. Create that new identity. Who you are today is not going to create that desired life that you want. It's a different person that needs to create that, because what you have now in life is all based on your current choices and your past choices. You need to make new choices. So make that new identity. If you have a side hustle or you're an entrepreneur or whatever it may be, what kind of person would it take to be or live that kind of life? That being said, that will eliminate the need for constant willpower. Willpower is short-lived. It gets way too much credit. People join a gym, they're great for a month and a half, and then they fall off because it's all willpower. But if you created the identity of Miss Athletic, now what would Miss Athletic act like every day? Well, Miss Athletic would have her shoes right there and she'd be ready to get going to her class or turn on the video every day. That's how she would act. That's the identity. It eliminates the need for willpower because it will create what we call habits. And they become automatic, and habits create your lifestyle. Everything is based on the actions you take every day. Create the new identity that will take the correct actions to create that desired life. So create your desired life, create your new identity. And this is fun and empowering just to do it, just to create this new awareness. And then positive focus. Every time you are faced with a challenge, we all have challenges. Every day we wake up, you have a choice. Am I going to deal with it? Am I going to run? Fight, flight, right? You're either going to fight or you're going to run from it. Either way is not going to get you anywhere. So have a positive focus where instead of, like I said before, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Well, your mind is going to tell you 100 reasons why it's happening. Say, why is this happening to me? What is it doing for me? What am I learning from this? Why is this happening to me right now? And how is it going to help me create that desired life? Maybe it's going to make me stronger. Maybe it's going to, finally, I'm going to reach that pain threshold where I tell the guy to take a hike, or I tell my boss, I deserve this raise because look what I've done. I deserve this. And I think a lot of women would be surprised at the result they got. Like, whoa, like a lot of bullies. I didn't know you were mad. I was just teasing. You don't know unless you ask. But you do it assertively, not aggressively, not passively. So yeah, you got to do it assertively. I said, not too many bosses are going to come up to you and say, here's a raise. I noticed you're doing a great job. You got to be assertive. You got to say, hey, look, I expect to be respected. And you say that through your body language, and people know. And I know I'm a business owner and I have employers. And when I find people that have they take initiative, wow, that's the people on my team. And you just got to have that purpose in life. What is your desired life? What's it going to be? What's your purpose behind that? Create that identity and stay focused on getting to that. Everything that happens to you is one step closer to your desired life, or it's one step farther away.
Awesome. So how do people get a hold of you, Rich?
Well, the best way would be to go to gotphysicalempowerment.com. They can, find out more about me, find out more about my book on Amazon. They can also, there'll be some links to my personal Facebook. If they're on Facebook, I post all sorts of stuff on there, tips, support, accountability, and you'll also see how to get on Hands Off Lady Rebels. So check it out. Think about it. Now you know. lady rebels. We're rebelling against the status quo. Let's do this. Let's become more of a force. And I mean, because we all know they're smarter. Don't and you know, look at, like I said, Mother Bear, she's going to make things happen. She's going to take action, and we all have that in us, whether we have kids or not. Doesn't matter. You deserve to be respected. You should expect to be respected. Make it happen.
Awesome. Well, Rich, I want to thank you so much for sharing this with us today, for sharing your story and really giving women opening their minds to the reality that, yes, you can. You can be someone who speaks your mind, and you can still be feminine and still be a woman. Both things can coexist. So I really appreciate your male perspective and the empowering message that you brought today to my tribe. Thank you, and thank you for letting me share. It's my pleasure. Today I've been speaking with Rich-Kohler. He's a leading physical empowerment coach. He's a 6th degree karate black belt. He's the creator of Hands Off Lady Women's Empowerment Workshop, and his book is Got Physical Empowerment? The Ambitious Woman's Guide to a Kick-Ass Life. If you head over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 189, I will have links to Rich, his website, and his books. While you're there, please leave your name and email address, and I've got a gift for you. I send out periodic encouraging emails, and while you're at it, head to Instagram, Feminine Roadmap, and follow. Look up Rich as well. Ladies, this message has come at a time when there's so much stress, there's so many things going on in the world, and I think sometimes we get lost trying to figure out how we are supposed to be. I think it's important to know that you have the permission to be strong, and strong in ways that are empowering. We don't have to match the energy of a man. We can just be strong as women and stand up and speak our truth, and it's okay. So I encourage you to get a hold of these resources and to grow that part of yourself so that we as women can step up and be the mama bears, be the ones who show our daughters and show our nieces and show the other young girls in our life that it is okay to stand on your own 2 feet and set healthy boundaries. It's all good. There's nothing wrong with speaking up for yourself. So friends, thank you so much for listening today. I look forward to sharing more empowering messages with you next week. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.